العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين وخاتم النبيين محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. All praise and glory belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Lord of the heavens and the earth, the owner of all majesty, our creator, our nourisher, our sustainer. And we send salutations and greetings upon the best of mankind, the perfect creation. He is Muhammad Mustafa Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, brothers and sisters of Ramadan Radio, Ramadan.fm, coming to you live from the heart of Leicester City with me, Brother Irfan M, for another jam packed, fun edition of Money Matters. Yes, that's right. It's our latest episode of Money Matters, talking to you about everything related to the exciting and developing world of Islamic finance and how you can make the most of the cash in your pocket, inshallah. We've got a real sort of a jam-packed program tonight, so I'm not going to waste any time, folks. I want to introduce my first guest. Our first guest is director of the Minara Group, which is a consultancy which connects the movers and shakers within Islamic finance together in the hope and the ambition that we can sort of move forward together as a community and understand more about how we manage, spend, invest, and make the most of the money that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us. So I would like to introduce to Radio Ramadan Brother Jordan Maxwell. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi, Jordan.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. MashaAllah, quite the introduction. I couldn't have done better.
Well, like I said, I'm kind of gassed that you've joined us this evening. So first of all, how are you?
Alhamdulillah, I'm very well. Halfway through Ramadan, the time has flown. I can't believe how quick it's gone. But alhamdulillah, loving every day.
Mashallah, I'm looking at your beard and it's on point, and I've got a bit of beard envy going on. Mashallah, alhamdulillah, looking really good, man. So listen, Jordan, thank you so much for joining us this evening. I don't know how much you know about the program, but last week we had Ibrahim Khan from Islamic Finance Guru, who I'm sure you know quite well on a personal level. Ibrahim shared with us some money tips around how to best invest your money, how to save money, and just how to be a bit smarter with money. So I think today what we'd like to talk about is, obviously, with the current situation the whole world finds itself in, I think now is a good time to sort of understand ourselves and how comfortable we are with how we understand our money, right? So let's talk to our listeners about sort of the importance of, I think, being financially literate is probably the best way to put it.
Yeah. So Bismillah. As you quite rightly put it, we do find ourselves in a very different world today than we were a few months back. One thing that hasn't changed is the importance of financial literacy. In fact, it's probably been a little more emphasized now. Me personally, from the work that I'm doing with Minara, as you mentioned, we're finding that we're getting a lot more inquiries around financial education. And look, I'm in this position, I'm in that position. What do I do? What rights do I have? Where do I stand with my employer? Is there any assistance that I can get? Those inquiries are ramping up a little more now, quite understandably. But the need for financial literacy is a very big task, and it has been for a while. Fortunately, it's getting a little bit of a spotlight now. Conventional financial institutions and the financial services market are starting to put a lot more emphasis on people being financially literate. I think that has a big, we're starting to notice how money education, how to manage your money, how much of a link it has with mental well-being as well.
Yes.
And obviously we all know that mental well-being is of the utmost importance. It's getting a lot of attention at the moment. So tracking that back to money is a natural course. The work that I'm doing has led me to founding a new initiative called Wealthy. It's relatively new. We're doing that in partnership with the Money and Pension Services, which I'm not sure if you're familiar, is a government-backed initiative. It basically helps people with financial education and financial literacy. It publishes a lot of great material that we're very fortunate to be able to share and license as well. And that's generally what's keeping me busy at the moment.
Okay, mashallah. Well, sounds fantastic. I mean, so let's look at the current situation we find ourselves in. Inshallah, once everything settles down and we re-emerge from these restrictions, the world's going to be a very different place. Now, if we look at Islamically, and historically within Islam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran has been very explicit about how we should conduct ourselves when it comes to our finances, our economics, and our provision within the community.
Mhm.
Do you think now, with the sort of, I suppose, the fragility of capitalism and those sorts of systems, do you think other non-Islamic communities and non-Islamic societies will now look towards how Muslims do their manage their money and think, okay, you know what, there's something in this?
Yeah, potentially. I mean, just on that, going back to the 2008 crisis, that was mainly caused due to liquidity and over leverage. Obviously, we know as Muslims that something, riba is a big no-no.
Mm.
It generally means that our capacity for leverage is lower than other institutions, and we found that we came out of that crisis a little better than conventional banks and conventional institutions. We weren't unscathed. We still had a little damage done to us, but I think that was the beginning point where people started to stand up and take notice and be like, hold on, these guys over here were relatively okay coming out of this. They weren't as damaged as maybe these guys over here. What is it about them that they've done or that they're doing that's allowed that? And we're seeing now, as the years have gone on, that the term ethical is being thrown around a lot. ESG finance and ethical investing and something like that, which is great because we believe that according to the Sharia, what we do as far as finance is ethical. The bit where it gets a bit tricky is that according to conventional definition, not everything that is ethical is Sharia compliant, whereas everything that is Sharia compliant is ethical, right?
Right.
So we really need to be careful, but we are, at the moment, we are looking pretty good as far as what we're doing in the market is working.
Okay, so folks, you're listening to Radio Ramadan online on the app, on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Our guest today is Jordan Maxwell, brother Jordan Maxwell from Menara Group, and we're talking about managing your money. So when we talk about financial education, Jordan, it's probably a good idea to start as young as we can in terms of, imparting knowledge with our children. Because it's something which I think needs to be taught perhaps a bit more in schools, but understanding. So in terms of how we understand and manage our money, let's take it right down to the basics. What do you think are the top, 1, 2, or 3 things that we need to start as a fundamental foundation to make sure we can understand our money better?
Sure. So it starts with the mentality, I believe. I think we need to get out of this idea of financial exclusion, that financial advice, financial assistance is only for the rich or the affluent, which it just isn't. But what if you have that mentality is quite detrimental, because if you feel that you're not entitled to a particular service, you're not going to seek it out. You're not going to go after it, which then causes problems because it allows you to fall deeper and deeper into bad financial habits. And I mean, going back to the work that we're doing with the Money and Pension Service, according to one of their statistics, is that up to 55% of all adults in the UK are not confident about their financial future. That's nearly half the population, right? They have no confidence when it comes to money or managing their own money.
So is that out of fear then? They lack the confidence because, we've seen recently in the last few months adverts on TV saying, oh, let's talk about the M word, being money. Do you think that there is generally a fear or maybe even a shame to talk about money?
Yeah, 100%. I feel that it's got a big part to do with fear and the unknown. If you talk to someone about, their pensions or what's an ISA account or something like that, the majority of people just don't know. They don't know what they're entitled to. They don't know that they can have access to these products, and they can. And it's just that kind of, that over there is for those types of people. It's not for me. And then what you see from that is that those bad habits, as they begin forming, they trickle down to our children, and to the next generation. I think only 1 in 3 parents speak to their children about money, regardless of their affluence, which is terrible. Because as you said, we need to start introducing this into the education system. And there are some charities, there are some organizations that are starting to do that. But, research has found that around 5, 6, 7 years old is when children start forming the habits that will last for the rest of their lives. And if money management and financial confidence, should I say, isn't instilled in them at that point by their parents, then they're off to a slow start into adulthood.
Okay, so what tips and advice would you give to parents like myself? I've got two teenage children who think Balenciaga shoes grow on trees. But practically, let's kind of try and sort of unpick the stigma, or sort of let's sort of not be ashamed of it. So give us some practical tips around sort of building that foundation and how we can approach talking more about money.
Sure. Well, we need to make it relevant first of all. There's levels to this, as they say. If you are someone who is heavily indebted, and unfortunately we find that one of the most indebted boroughs in London is one that is inhabited quite a lot by a Muslim community in Tower Hamlets. We need to. There's no point in talking about things like investments and savings if you are heavily in debt. That's way too far down the line. The first thing we need to address is how do we get to a net neutral position? So let's deal with the elephant in the room and deal with what's directly in front of us. Once we get to there, then we can start building, as you say, the foundations of a solid financial plan. Now, I mentioned this quite a lot. I mentioned it in my podcast. I speak to my friends about it all the time, and it's something that I call but it is called the Pixie Method, PIPSI, which stands for protection, life protection, and then we have the I, which is income protection, P is pension, S is savings, I is investments. And these 5 things together, these 5 things together are unanimously agreed by the financial services community to be the foundations of a strong financial plan moving forward. Now, as I mentioned, each of them have their place. Not all of them is going to be relevant to you at this particular time in your life. But if you look at these 5 and say, right, do I have these things in place at the moment when I need them, or am I at a point in life where I should start considering them? This is where I should start, and that's the easiest thing to start with, I believe.
Okay, so the Pepsi method, I like that. Yeah, a bit like Pepsi, but without the E.
Yeah.
Okay, nice. Okay, yeah. so that's great. So so I think once people feel comfortable and start having that conversation, it can maybe relieve some of the stress and the pressure that they might be feeling about managing. Because I know myself, sometimes, alhamdulillah, even though we're in the situation, I'm still working, I'm still getting my salary being paid, alhamdulillah, but that's not the case for a lot of people. And like you said, they're looking for advice. So in terms of those people who might be affected by what's going on, but have yet to kind of seek the advice, where would you advise them first and foremost to kind of go to in terms of getting information or accessing some sort of helpline?
Yeah, it's a good question. So the first thing I'll do, I mean, to be honest, to get started, you don't need to reach out to anyone. You need to look internally. You need to look at your own situation. We all have access to our own bank accounts. I would suggest creating a very crude budget. It doesn't need to be flashy. It doesn't need to be, you don't need to be a tech whiz. It could be simple as a piece of paper. Write down your income and your outgoings. If you find yourself at the end of it, after you've done the calculation, that you are at a negative or a deficit, then you know that you need to seek out some kind of debt advice. Mm-hmm. There's many places you can turn to. There is the Money and Pension Services, the Money Advice Services. They provide free advice around this. It can be a bit of a stigma, debt advice. Not many people would want to kind of put their hand up and say, I'm in debt, I need assistance. In fact, I think only 1 in 3 people actually receive adequate debt advice who need it, which is unfortunate. But there are places that you can go once you've identified that you actually need help. And then from there, as I say, debt's probably the biggest barrier to get over, because it means that we're dealing with no money. We're dealing with someone else's money. We need to pay them for it. But once we get into a neutral position, or indeed a surplus, now we start dealing with our own money, then we can start reaching out to the organizations, the institutions, to say, okay, where can I best place this money? It doesn't need to be a lot. It could be £100. It could be £50. It could be £30. As long as it's yours, you can say, right, where can I now place this money that it can start working for me? You may want to start considering things like life protection. You might want to look at something like income protection insurance, which, as you quite rightly mentioned, now some people find themselves without any income. They've lost their jobs. I'm sure that in a couple of months ago, they would have loved the opportunity to take out income protection insurance when they had the opportunity to. Mm-hmm. They would be okay now, potentially. Mm-hmm. So it's really about looking internal first. find where you are. Where do you stand on this on the map? If you're in a deficit, seek out some debt advice. It's there for you, and 9 times out of 10, it's free. You don't have to go to a bank. You don't have to go to a financial advisor. They're going to charge you. There are plenty of organizations that will provide you assistance for free, but you have to be willing to put your hand up and say, I'm in this situation, I need help. Then once they can help you with that, then you, as I say, you get to your net neutral position, inshallah, and then you start dealing with your own money. You're a bit more flush, as they say. You have some disposable income. Then you can start engaging with the the for-profit institutions as to where you can best allocate those additional funds.
Okay, so Jazakallah for that. That's really, really helpful. Now, Alhamdulillah, where I live in Leicester, the Muslim community has been blessed. Alhamdulillah, we have a lot of influential business people within our community. Alhamdulillah, they do a lot of work for supporting the masajids here. Giving donations, sustaining a lot of worthwhile projects. Do you think that us as Muslims in general, we seem to have, we are perhaps maybe in a more fortunate position than say other communities, purely because of Islam being that foundation upon which we live all aspects of our lives upon?
I believe so. It's given us a trajectory. It's very clear in the way that we live our lives. Everything's written down. We have, we can trace it back quite clearly to say this is how we should be living. It's kind of like a blueprint, right? In how we should live, which it means that we can live within a particular guideline. We don't necessarily have to stray over here or over there. I think one issue that we do struggle with, though, is an access to sufficient products that are for us.
Yes.
As you quite rightly said, we're a very entrepreneurial community, right? We have so many businessmen and businesswomen that are doing, mashallah, great things. I've had the pleasure of working alongside many of the prominent Muslim charities, and some of the work that they're doing. You see that there's a lot of money in our community. There's a lot of affluence in our community. But then when you say, okay, what kind of products do we have on the market where we can start putting this money? It's not really there. From bank accounts to insurance to investments, it's quite sparse, right? That's something that needs to change. I think Islamic finance in general has had a bit of a bad rep for a while, in that some people say it's a bit expensive, or some people say is it really Islamic? Are they just reverse engineered conventional products with another title slapped over it or something like that? But it's better than having nothing. That's the way that we should see it. And we have a bubble. We have an ecosystem that is now beginning to thrive. The introduction of technology, for instance, is something that's allowing that to compound quite exponentially. So I believe that we are very fortunate in that we have a blueprint. We have people within our community that have access to capital and access to funds. And now it's just about where can we place these funds, how can we build businesses and build this ecosystem and make it a lot stronger so that we can thrive, inshallah.
Inshallah. So, brothers and sisters, you are listening to Ramadan.fm with me, your host, Brother Irfhan M, and our very special guest, Jordan Maxwell, coming to us live from London. Is that right, Jordan? You're in London?
Yeah, I'm in London at the moment.
The big smoke, as they say. So we're talking about money, and Alhamdulillah, Brother Jordan is sharing his experiences around how we as a Muslim community can sort of understand money a bit more and perhaps feel a bit more comfortable with our relationship with money. A lot of this is about our relationship, our perception, our feelings, our emotions attached to the subject. Now, that taking that in mind, alhamdulillah, and we talked about the education from as young as possible age, because it's always good to impart these sorts of nuggets to our loved ones. Do you think that there is a role that perhaps some of our more traditional Islamic institutions can play in I think fostering the understanding of the importance of money? Because alhamdulillah, they give us a lot of spiritual guidance and knowledge and teaching around Islam, But I think sometimes we need to understand a bit more about sort of the day-to-day living. So, there are still some people who've got that hide your cash under the mattress mentality. There are still some people who kind of think, oh, insurance, it's totally haram, and it's a lot more complex than that.
Yeah.
Is there a role, especially for some of our more traditional, Muslim communities who've been here from, I don't know, Africa, India, whatever, they're kind of somewhat disengaged with the developments within this sector. Is there a role that some of these institutes can sort of play, or maybe introduce, where people can access this sort of advice?
Yes. Short answer, yes. They have a very big role to play. I mentioned earlier some of the negative traits that Islamic finance has had over the years, and just to add to that, another one is that people believe it's quite complicated. It's quite complex thing to understand. I believe a big reason why we feel that way is the way that it's been taught, or the way that it's been perceived over the years. If, for instance, if I wanted to open a bank account, let's say, or if I wanted to take out a mortgage, I'll go to my bank and I'll sit down. They would ask me a few questions, but they wouldn't really get into the ins and outs of how they work behind the scenes. They'll say, look, this is the product that you want. Does it tick the boxes that you want? Yes. Here you go. There, it's yours, right? In our case, if I wanted to get a home purchase agreement with an Islamic bank, chances are I'm going to have to sit down and understand, and they're going to explain what a diminishing musharaka is, or mudaraba, or right? And it's just like, I'm not a scholar, right? Do I really need to know what that is? Okay, it's nice to know, but I don't need to know. I just want to buy a home. I just want to open a bank account. I just want to take out some insurance. That's all I want. And I think for a very long time, especially for me, I use myself as an example. Islamic finance has been something that you study. It's that dusty book that's up there on the shelf that was written God knows how many years ago by someone that I don't know. And you open it up and it's just complicated. A lot of complicated language that I don't understand. It's not something that we practice in our day-to-day lives. Is it something that I can tell to my mum or my grandmother and say, yeah, look, here you go? No, they just wouldn't even know where to start. Now, fortunately, I've had some experience in it. I hold the IFQ certificate, so I kind of know what these things are. But the average person don't know, they don't want to know, and realistically, they don't need to know.
Accessibility is the key then, making it accessible, easy to sort of understand, and just within people's reach. Okay, so Jazakallah for that. I'm afraid time is against us, Jordan. We've got a couple of minutes left before the show, before this segment ends. Coming up after the break, we've got Brother Usman Jadoon from One Key Solutions. I want to leave the last word to you though, Jordan. What is the one piece of advice you can give to our listeners, especially our youngsters, in terms of understanding more about the money?
Don't be afraid of it. Don't be scared don't be scared of money. Don't think that it's not for you or it's only for the affluent. Go out, seek as much information as you possibly can. It's actually quite fun once you know the ins and outs of how money works and you start seeing it in a different light. It's used as a tool for good. It's the way I describe money is that it's a lubricant for society. It allows the gears to work, it allows us to get things done. And the more we know about that, the better that will be for the future, inshallah.
So there you have it, listeners. Do not be afraid of that cash in your pocket. Alhamdulillah. Remember, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the provider of all risk. He gives all sustenance, and he has promised to us that whatever we give in the sake of Allah, he will reward us, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10-fold, inshallah. But listen, absolute pleasure, Jordan. Tell us very quickly, what have you got coming up after Ramadan in terms of your work?
Well, I'm just going to carry on with the work that I'm doing with Manara Group. As I said, we recently launched Wealthy, which is the education portion of it. So we actually start engaging with clients and helping them to build confidence.
And how can people get in touch with Wealthy?
Go to wealthy.co.uk. So that's wealthie.co.uk. Go there, get in touch, or you can just reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm quite active on there.
Okay, so check out Brother Jordan. Listen, Jazakallah khair for your time this evening. Wish you a blessed remainder of Ramadan and a fantastic Eid indoors, hopefully, inshallah. But listen, come and join us next time, inshallah, when we're on, and you look after yourself. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi, Brother Jordan. Listeners, stay tuned to Money Matters. Coming up in the second half of the program, we've got Brother Usman Jadoon talking about business in the new world after coronavirus and the post-COVID era. So stay tuned for that. You are listening to Radio Ramadan on 87.7 FM. I am Brother Irfan M, and please join me after the break. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
New Horizons in British Islam is an organisation that engages in critical discussions around Muslim identity, tradition, and reform. Ramadan Bites today is from Dr. Shazad Salim, and it's all about spiritual fitness.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alaikum viewers. Physical fitness is something which we all cherish. We would all like to be physically fit and healthy at all times. And when we know that whenever we are sick or whenever we lose health, we know the amount of bother that we have to go through. And just as our own body needs this fodder to remain physically fit, let me tell you that since we human beings also exist at another plane, which is the spiritual level, we need this spiritual fitness as well. So besides this physical fitness, spiritual fitness is something that we all need. And in the absence of this spiritual fitness, our own soul grows weak. And a person or a soul who has grown weak is one who has lost his connection with the Almighty. He is one who would readily lie. He will not tell the truth as if it was something liable from his own conscience. A person who is spiritually fit will always look after other people. A person who is spiritually fit will always hold dear the cause of the truth before him. He will have the courage to speak the truth, to side by the truth. He will be a selfless person. He will be a person who will always look after other people. He will never be arrogant. He will always have the good of other people before him. Spiritual fitness, in other words, is the name of a person who has very strong morals, a person who has a very strong personality, a person who we can really look up to. So dear viewers, besides physical fitness, let us also pay equal importance to this spiritual fitness. And the way to attain this spiritual fitness is to have a strong God connection. And in order to have a strong God connection, the best way is to come closer to God through His introduction, through the way He has been introduced in the scriptures, especially the Quran. A study of the Quran would reveal how we can come closer to the God. The Quran itself introduces the Almighty, His being, His attributes, the way He deals with people. And this
New Horizons in British Islam is an organisation that engages in critical discussions around Muslim identity, tradition and reform. And Ramadan Bites today comes from Idris Ali, a businessman and a new father from Leicester. And it's all about meaningful conversations.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Your boy Eddie here, pulling through with a Ramadan Bites for New Horizons. Today, I am looking to talk about meaningful conversation. As we have quite a bit of time on our hands, for those of us that are at home, well, we're supposed to be at home through this lockdown, it would be nice to have a meaningful conversation with everyone in the house as we're at home. Most of the time, we're so busy and we're so engrossed in work, study, or even socializing outside of our family home that we forget the people in our home. And Alhamdulillah, we've been blessed with this time to maybe sit down with our kids, our siblings, our parents even, or whoever else is in the house from our family and friends, and have a meaningful conversation with them. Genuinely sit down and talk to them and listen to them. Share that time together. Normally when we sit down to eat or when we're in the family room together, we tend to be on our phone. We utilize that time to socialize with other people outside, even though we're inside. And we forget those that are around us. So myself, I'm doing my best, or I'm trying my best, should I say, to make time for those people that are at home. And if possible, make that video call to those family members that we haven't spoken to for so long, and speak to them, have that meaningful conversation with them where you genuinely, with everything, listen to what they say, what they have to say. Listen to, even if it's the same thing over again, as in they could repeat themselves, but listen to them and hear them out. Believe you me, they'll appreciate it, and you'll appreciate it too. Because by speaking to your family and conversing with your family like this in a meaningful manner, you will feel the love grow between yourselves, especially for those of us that work outside of the city, so we don't frequently come home. For us especially, we should make time, because we're at home now with our family, to just sit and chill out with them and just have a bit of banter or chat about random things, you know, like we should do. But with life having become so fast. And
welcome back, listeners, to Money Matters with me, Brother Irfhan M, on 87.7 FM Ramadan Radio. You can listen online on the app, download on iOS, on Android, or check us out on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. If you're just joining us, welcome. Thank you for tuning in this evening. If you missed the first half of the program, we had Brother Jordan Maxwell from the Manara Group talking about how we can improve our relationship and our understanding of our personal finances. So do go check out Jordan on LinkedIn. I'm delighted to be joined now in the second half of the program by Brother Usman Jadoon. Assalamu alaikum, Brother Usman.
Wa alaikum assalam, Brother Irfhan. How are you?
Alhamdulillah. Brother Usman is the creative director at One Key Solutions, your digital marketing agency and branding consultancy based here in Leicester. So first of all, Jazakumullah khair, Brother Usman, for joining us this evening. I hope your Ramadan's going well.
Barakallah khair. Alhamdulillah, it's much better than what I have seen for a long time now.
Yeah, good. We're just saying before we came back on air that, alhamdulillah, it feels like it's been more productive and less stressful, which is always good. The less stress we can have in our lives, the better it is. So now, Usman, we want to talk about sort of business, and you're a business owner. You're a well-known sort of businessman here in Leicester, and we want to talk about sort of surviving business during this crisis, but also looking at how we can do business in different ways in a post-COVID era.
Okay. It's a very valid question. I mean, it's a very good topic, to be honest, what you have started here. If you look at how we were, I mean, we had a little campaign that is started about 4 days ago regarding how we're going to cope up with the post-COVID, because it's kind of a trauma. It's not something that we were expecting or we can prepare for. It happened to us. We were all stuck in it. And unlike the recessions that we have seen in the past, where the bigger fishes had the bigger hit, and the SMEs and all of them, they survived and they thrived through the recessions rather than they were collapsing. So at this point, what we have now is the SMEs, they were directly hit.
Yeah,
and they were in place where they had to close the doors, and most of the SMEs, they can't afford that. We all know that. We all been there. We've seen it. We've worked with businesses. We know it's very hard to close that door. And when you have got bills to pay, and now when we have these different financial options, I've seen some of your programs on the financial matters. There are finances available. There are different helps available. The biggest thing that I would say that you can count on at this point is the bounce back loans.
The government-backed loan, yes. Which I think are they launching today?
No, they have already launched.
They've already launched, yes.
So what initially happened was that the government backed out. The loans were backed 80% by the government and 20% was the director's own responsibility. But then the banks didn't pay out as many loans as they should have. So the government then initiated another plan where they were offering 100% guarantee by the government. So now the loans have been paid and basically the criterion is that is 25% of your turnover. Right? It's very simple. It's an online form that you got to fill in. But the beauty of this thing is, right? I say to some of my clients that it's more of a blessings for you. Unfortunately, I shouldn't be saying it, but for some businesses, it's a lifeline that's been thrown at them. If you look at the positive aspect of it, that what they can do with these finances, like the small businesses, they're getting about I think less than 15,000 rateable value. They're getting 10% as 10,000 as a grant, and then as the bounce back loans, they can get 25% of the turnover. What does that mean? Is that you've got another source, another lifeline, where either you can use it productively to help to get some help with your cash flows, right? Because obviously this thing is not going to go away within months. Right? It's there to stay. So the cash flow can be helped. I mean, basically, it's cash flows that run a business. So these cash flows would be helped by this loan. Secondly, that if you have a plan in mind, like I was reading on one of these journals, and there was a case study on there where there was an entrepreneur, and in this COVID-19, they applied for a loan recently last week or this week. I'm not too sure. I think it was last week, and they had that loan, and what they did is they planned an expansion on it. So rather than using it as a cash flow, they are planning to expand with the amount of funds that they're going to get from it. So it's kind of a blessing as well as anything else.
Yeah, I suppose it depends on how you look at it. It's that old sort of, glass half empty, half full. But do you think a lot of businesses, because of what's happened with the coronavirus situation and because of their cash flow, do you think they are a bit more cautious now in taking out a loan, because ultimately that money needs to be paid back at some point somehow, and do you think they are making life maybe a bit more uncertain for themselves if they're taking that loan to expand, like you said? I mean, surely that there's some sort of risks involved here.
Well, obviously, in business, there's always risk involved in business. But like they say, the greater the risk, the greater the reward.
Sure.
But in this point of time, this is very calculated risk. I mean, for me, I would say it's very calculated because at 2.5% with interest rate, with 1 year, 12 months, the government is going to pay the interest. So still, if you look at the amount that you're going to get for it, and the money that you can make from it is quite considerate.
Yeah.
People, obviously, if you're expecting it, I mean, it's not that everyone doesn't do business. There's a simple reason behind it, because not everyone takes the risk. Right? There are people who want a certain income, a certain lifestyle, and they stick by it. And there are certain people who jump off the cliffs without anything. Right? So we've got a blend of both. So people who are taking risks, they benefit a bit more than the people who are not. It is similarly, when furlough was introduced, most of the companies introduced them in a way that if you come to work, right, if you're willing to take that risk, you get 100% paid. But if you don't, you get 80% paid.
Yeah.
Same with the businesses. If you are now in a state where there's money available that you can use, but if you don't use it, you need money to make money. As simple as that. So now if you're getting the money, might as well make most out of it.
Yeah, and I suppose the government is trying to encourage the businesses to keep going and do whatever they can, with knowing that they are secure by having that financial cushion. Because ultimately, if businesses are doing well, then the economy does well, the government is doing well, and the country as a whole is doing well. So maybe that, I'm sure there is a longer term thinking here, whereby the government is thinking, right, as soon as we come out of this situation, we want the businesses to be able to respond as quickly as they can, and start getting customers back through the doors. I mean, because I was looking at some charts last week that were saying that although the economy has dipped sharply, inshallah, once everything gets back to sort of some sort of normality, we do expect to see a very quick and sharp rise in terms of the economy, not like the financial crash of 12 years ago, because this will, once people are allowed back, then we can see that. Getting a text coming in on Facebook now. One of our listeners is writing in saying, I agree with Brother Usman. If we use wisely, it can be used for many uses, cash flow being one of them, but expansion most definitely being the other. So I think that there are a lot of very I think positive, confident business people out there. So alhamdulillah. So yes, so I'm nowhere near as experienced as you guys, but that's good. So I mean, let's look at yourself for a moment, Brother Usman, and how have you adapted? How have you coped with the COVID situation?
Well, since it started, I'm at home, right? And so is all my team. We are all working from home. We've got technology. We are using it. And to be honest, even before COVID-19, we have transformed ourselves in a way that although we have an office space, but most of us are not using that office space.
Mm-hmm.
We're working remotely.
Yeah.
So it's the way the business has evolved, and it's the way the things have moved on. Because everything nowadays, if you look at it, it's more online, right? So if you transform the way there's I don't know where you guys are currently situated, but down the road on Abington Road, there's a solicitor, SKR Legal. I was seeing him the other day, and he told me that you won't find a single piece of paper in my office. Imagine a solicitor office without a piece of paper.
Wow.
Right. So that's how the things are moving. It's all digitized. It's all computerized, and collaboration is on your fingertips. You can collaborate any way you want to. Like yourself, when you started the intro, right? The number of platforms that you mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
my Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all them, right? These all social media platforms, along with your radio, the Android devices, the Apple devices. There's so much out there. And that's a thing that I wanted to talk about today, especially with you, is that if we've got the technology, we've got to make use of it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We are very adaptive in nature, human beings are. So we adapt to what's happening. It's evolution, how we're going about. And in terms of the businesses, right, it's a race. I mean, it is a harsh word, but it is a race that everyone is running. And there is no option to be second. Everyone has to be first. So if you want to be first, you have to take certain measures. Unfortunately, with especially in the SMEs, the trend is that I'll do it myself.
Mm.
Right? That's the most common problem I've seen in the businesses and the small businesses that we have around us, is that they try to do everything themselves, trying to save a bit of money here and there. But does it really help? That's the question that they need to ask themselves. That if they want to do it themselves, right, how would the circle go? If you think about it, if I do all my carpentry work, all my building work, everything I do it myself,
Mm-hmm.
right? How would the circle work out? How would the cash flow among different businesses? It's not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, if you try to do everything yourself, then being a jack of all, master of none, that theory applies. So you won't be able to do anything to a perfection that you'd be able to do. Thirdly, it's the time that you're going to spend in there. You got to weigh it out in terms of what your worth is.
The cost associated with that time, yes?
Yeah, the cost, and also that what would you put yourself as, this is my worth of time that I'm spending in there, this is the worth of that time. I can make £50 an hour, I can make £100 an hour, I can make £1,000 an hour. So you got to put yourself at that point, say to yourself, look, if I pay to someone £20 an hour, right, and from that I can make £50 an hour, isn't it worth? Well, I had one client, he said to me once that rather than making £5,000 a week, I would have 5,000 people making me £1 each. Right? That's simple maths for you. Right? And it's less complicated. It's risk-free. That's what we need to understand. And with our businesses, smaller enterprises, we tend to see that people think that marketing is an expense. I always tell them marketing is not an expense. It is an investment that would bring you business. If you look at the current pandemic, who has succeeded more? The online businesses, the people who had the social presence, who had the online presence. And some of the companies were clever enough that used this time to their benefit. I've seen loads and loads of new companies appearing online. And by online, I don't specifically mean the online e-commerce shops. I'm talking about the online presence in terms of the social media, the digital media, and everyone, Google, everywhere that you can see loads of them. What are they trying to do? They are trying to have that presence. So like you mentioned in your comment before, that the government is saying that spike in it won't be the same kind of the dip that you would see in every recession. There would be a spike in there. So that's what they're planning for. So when this lockdown is over, I mean, it's partially over. Don't know what exactly happened, but there's something open and something closed, right?
I think let's leave that for the politicians. Let's just focus on business right now.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So something happened there, but when everything goes away, right, it's going to take time, but when it goes away, eventually what's going to happen is that people who have invested their time and their effort into their online presence, they would have a competitive edge over the competitors. Because firstly, most of your consumers, they are at home. Right? There's a big hike in the usage of social media, in the usage of on these devices, and people have been using the internet more than they ever were. But obviously, there's nothing else to do. So this is what they have been doing. But secondly, they have some time to reflect back on what has been happening with them. And some of the companies, what they have done is they have revised their procedures, and they have revised their policies in terms of the search engine. Because with search engines, you know that the algorithms keep on changing. So this is the best time to get that going. Get your SEO done. Get your website sorted. I'm not saying that you come to me and get that sorted, right? But you can get it sorted anywhere.
In general, yes.
In general, yeah. So you got to do it that you are prepared for the next step that we are moving into. It's phase 2. It's not over yet. It's going to be over, inshallah, soon. But we've got to be prepared for the worst. So the second phase is when we are slowly seeing people moving back into the businesses. But we have been yesterday or the day before, we even had a post out saying that it's not just the social distancing measures that you need to put in place for your businesses to strive. You need to facilitate more. And by that, you need to do more in terms of what you're going to get out of your customers. I mean, obviously, it's a race again. Whoever can, let's say if you go to a shop, right, at present, what do you see at the moment? It's just a minor example. Like if I go to Lidl, Aldi, anywhere you go, you see a big queue of people. But what are they doing? They just stand in there. They haven't got anything to do, right? So what would a smart campaigner do? They would put something out there for the customers, for the people in the queue to enjoy, right? Or to give them a memorable time. I mean, wherever we go, we are bombarded with branding anyway. So this is a place where you don't have to put something out there that is more likely an offer or anything like that, but it's a fun thing.
Yeah.
Like when you go to Alton Towers or anywhere,
Engage with the customer base, engaging with the customer.
Engage with the customers, give them something more.
Okay, great. So we've got another text come in on Facebook. One of the listeners is saying, I would strongly urge any of your business owners listening to apply for the £10,000 grants being offered to small businesses and the 25,000 being offered to certain businesses in different sectors. I've applied for mine. Don't be scared. They've made it very easy to apply, and payment comes through directly into your bank within a few days, directly from the council. I would strongly recommend it. And that just sort of echoes what you were saying earlier, Brother Usman, about there's an opportunity to sort of access a revenue stream of some sort. Yeah.
I mean, it's rightly so, because you're getting 10,000 in terms of the grants that you don't have to pay back. And then you got 25,000, like it's based on the assumption that you have a turnover of 100,000. You can get a grant of up to 25,000. And if you do it simple maths with a team of 3-4 people, right, this amount can get by for, I would say, about 4 to 5 months or 6 months at least.
Yeah.
So you're prepared before anything bad happens. At least you got 6 months covered. So that's what you need in the business, is that even let's say, alhamdulillah, everything goes well, right?
Yeah.
From day one, the business goes back to normal. Still, what you're getting out of it is you're getting 6 months cushion in there. So you got a 6 months cushion. If something goes wrong, you got something to fall back onto. And if alhamdulillah everything goes well, then you got this money to invest into something different.
Yeah. So expanding the business, making it, maybe buy some new equipment, some new, new laptops or whatever it might be, things that can enhance how you do work. So we've got a couple of minutes left, Brother Usman. Again, time is against us, but just before we wrap up, give me one thing that you're looking forward to from a business perspective after the COVID situation eases.
From the business perspective, I would like to see people engaging more with their customers. Because what we have learned in COVID-19 is community coming together. So what I would like to see in businesses striving more to make these little communities around them. And that's what I would really love to see, is that it's a community spirit. As soon as this COVID-19 hit us, right, everyone started to help each other out. That was an amazing feeling. I mean, even ourselves, we weren't doing anything else. We had this project, Stronger Together. Well, alhamdulillah, we tried to help people from Leicester, Derby, Birmingham, all around. Alhamdulillah, we managed to do that. But it was all voluntary basis. Right? There was no profit out of it or anything like that. But it was amazing. The spirit of the community was amazing. And it still is amazing. It's still going on. But it's not at the same pace as it was. So I would like to see the same kind of spirit happening for the businesses, that they've got to build these little hubs of theirs, these little networks of people around them. The customer loyalty, they need to get that customer loyalty, because we used to see that back in the days, when we used to study the marketing back in the days, customer loyalty was one of the points, that the brand loyalty is there, the customer loyalty is there. But now, there's no such thing as customer loyalty. There's no such thing as brand loyalty. Right? There are different factors that influence those, like pricing, quality, all these factors. Obviously, they do mean a lot. But still, customer loyalty has to be there. But it's not the fault of the customer that they lost that loyalty. It's the fault of the businesses. It's because of the businesses that they lost this customer loyalty. So they need to bring that, and the slogan that for that would be to do more for the customer
Do more for the customer. I have to stop you there, Brother Usman. Jazakumullah khair for coming on this evening. I'm afraid time is against us. But listen, thank you so much for joining us this evening. It's been absolutely brilliant listening to you and your pearls of business wisdom. Have a safe Ramadan. Have a fantastic Eid. Inshallah, hope to see you soon out and about. But you've been listening to Ramadan FM with me, Brother Irfhan. Next week, I've got Akmal Salim from Riskbank on. So please join in. Stay safe in the meantime. I'll be back tomorrow, inshallah. Look after yourselves. Have a great iftar. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.